Welcome to the third part of a multiple-part series about the history of Islam. Today we are going to talk about the Arab-Byzantine Wars. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad, Rashidun Caliphate was established. Arabian tribes rebelled against the first Caliph, Abu Bakr. These conflicts are known as the Rida Wars. They lasted from about 632 to 633 AD. The tribes had accepted Prophet Muhammad as the Prophet of God, but after his death, they owed no allegiance to the new Caliph. Ultimately, Abu Bakr and the Muslims were victorious, though brutal acts were committed against the tribesmen. Tens of thousands of them were put to the sword, until their tribes resubmitted to Islam. With the collapse of the rebellions and Arabia united, Abu Bakr now decided to expand the empire, setting his sights on the weakened Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire, known as the Eastern Roman Empire, was the continuation of the Roman Empire. It survived the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD and continued to exist for an additional 1,000 years, until it fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 AD. During most of its existence, the empire was the most powerful economic, cultural, and military force in Europe. The borders of the empire evolved significantly over its existence as it went through several cycles of decline and recovery. During the reign of Justinian I, which lasted from 527 to 565 AD, the empire reached its greatest extent. After reconquering much of the former Roman territories, Italy, the province of Hispania, North African coast, and Rome itself, which it held for more than 2 centuries. During the reign of Maurice, which lasted from 582 to 602 AD, the empire's eastern border was expanded and the north stabilized. However, his assassination caused the devastating Byzantine Sassanid Wars, which lasted from 602 to 618 AD. These terrible wars exhausted the empire and played a major part in huge territorial losses against the initial Muslim conquests of the 7th century. In a matter of a few years, the empire lost its richest provinces, the province of Egypt and Syria, to the invading Arabian armies. Syria had been under Roman rule for 7 centuries, prior to the Arab conquest. During the Roman Sassanid Wars of 602 to 618 AD, the Sassanids had succeeded in occupying Syria, Palestine and Egypt for over a decade before being forced by the victories of the Emperor Heraclius to cede the territories back to the Romans. Thus, on the eve of the Muslim conquests, the Byzantines were still in the process of rebuilding their authority in these territories, which, in some areas, had been lost to them for almost 20 years. Syria was mostly a Hellenized land with some Jewish presence and with a partly Arab population, especially in its eastern and southern parts. The Syriac Christians, Jews, and Arabs had been there since pre-Roman times. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, after recapturing Syria from the Sassanids, set up new defense lines against the traditional foes of the empire, Persians. This defense line had a drawback though, that it enabled the Muslims, who emerged from the desert in the south, to reach as far north as Gaza, before meeting the regular Byzantine troops. The 7th century was a time of fast military changes in the Byzantine Empire. The empire was certainly not in a state of collapse when it faced the new challenge from Arabia after being exhausted by recent Roman-Persian wars, but completely failed to tackle the challenge effectively. In 634 AD, the Arabs under Khalid ibn Walid invaded southern Syria. This caught the Byzantines off guard, because they had set up defenses north. Nevertheless, both armies met each other at the Battle of Aynadine. This was the first engagement between the Byzantine Empire and the army of the Arab-Rashidun Caliphate. The result of the battle was a decisive Muslim victory. The defeat of the Byzantines at the Battle of Aynadine left Syria vulnerable to the Muslim invaders. Khalid set his sights on the important stronghold of Damascus. Emperor Heraclius tried to send reinforcements to Damascus, but they were intercepted and routed. Damascus fell after a 30-day siege. Abu Bakr, the first caliph, died during the siege, and Umar became the new caliph of the Rashidun Caliphate. The new caliph dismissed Khalid from command and appointed Abu Ubaidah as the new commander of the caliph's army. There was inevitably a slowdown in the pace of military operations, as Abu Ubaidah moved more slowly and steadily. The conquests of Syria continued under him. By capturing central Syria, the Muslims had given a decisive blow to the Byzantines. The communication lines between northern Syria and Palestine was now cut off. Abu Ubaidah decided to march to Fahl, where a strong Byzantine garrison and the survivors of the Battle of Aynadine were present. The Byzantine army was eventually decisively defeated at the Battle of Fahl on 635 AD. After the battle, Palestine and southern Syria were in Muslim hands. The Arabs now moved to invade northern Syria. However, the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius and Sassanid Emperor Yazdegerd III set aside their differences and made plans to attack their common enemy, Caliph Umar. But a coordinated attack was never achieved. In 636 AD, one of the largest battles between the Romans and the Muslims began. It is known as the Battle of Yarmouk. The battle lasted for 6 days and resulted in total annihilation of the Byzantine army. Before the battle, however, Abu Ubaidah transferred the command of the Muslim army to Khalid, who acted as a field commander in the battle and was the mastermind behind the destruction of the Byzantine army. This battle forever ended Byzantine domination of the Levant. After the devastating battle, the holy city of Jerusalem was captured in 637 AD. Jerusalem would remain in Muslim hands until 1099 AD. Byzantium had run out of resources and was no longer able to retake Syria. After the battle, Emperor Heraclius reportedly said, "Farewell, a long farewell to Syria, my fair province. Peace be with you, O Syria. What a beautiful land you will be for the enemy." After abandoning Syria, the emperor began to concentrate on his remaining forces for the defense of Anatolia and Egypt instead. In 638 to 639 AD, Arabs captured Armenia. After that, the Muslims set their sights on Egypt. Most of Egypt was captured in 640 AD, but in 641 AD, the Arabs laid siege to the most important city of the Byzantine Egypt, Alexandria. It is said that Emperor Heraclius collected a large army at Constantinople and intended to march at the head of these reinforcements personally to take Alexandria, but before he could finalize the arrangements, he died. The city was captured after 6 months siege. After this, Egypt was in Muslim hands. The permanent loss of Egypt meant a loss of a huge amount of Byzantium's food and money. It also meant that the Mediterranean, long referred to as the Roman Lake, was now contested between the two powers of the Muslim Caliphate and the Byzantine Empire. With the fall of Alexandria, the Muslims were now the masters of Egypt. At the time of their Egyptian campaign, Alexandria was the capital of the province and its richest city. When Alexandria was captured by the Muslims, the houses vacated by the Byzantines were occupied by the Muslims. Greek citizens were given a choice: to return to Greek territory safely without their wealth, or to stay in Alexandria and pay jizya. Some chose to stay, while others went to Byzantine lands. To consolidate his rule in Egypt, Umar imposed jizya on Egyptians. The new rulers of Syria divided it into 4 districts: Damascus, Jund, Hims, Jordan, Palestine. Also, Arab garrisons were kept apart in camps. Life went on much as before for the local population. The Muslims tolerated the Jews and Christians, although the payment of jizya was demanded of the local non-Muslim population. As time passed, Egypt and Syria became more and more Arabic and Muslim. The hostilities between the Arabs and the Byzantines continued, culminating in the Second Siege of Constantinople, which lasted from 717 to 718 AD. The Theodosian walls and the newly invented Greek fire withstood the massive Arab onslaught. After this battle, although regular attacks on the Byzantine territories continued, the goal of outright conquest was abandoned. Historians consider the siege to be one of the history's most important battles, as its failure postponed the Muslim advance into southeastern Europe for centuries. Along with the Battle of Tours in 732 AD, the siege of Constantinople stopped the Muslim expansion into Europe. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe. See you next time.